Hello, folks. I'm back for the final and concluding discussion on the dolphins. I hope you've got an opportunity to go through the our first lesson, and if you have found out some more fun facts about the dolphins, do share them with me. Yes, do write in, right? And we continue with our discussion on the dolphins with stanza 4. Okay, so if you look at stanza 4, the same theme of control and persecution continues. The moon has disappeared. We circle well worn grooves of water on a single note. Music of loss forever from the other's heart, which turns my own to stone. There is a plastic toy. There is no hope. We sink to the limits of this pool until the whistle blows. There is a man, and our mind knows we will die there. The moon has disappeared. What happens when the moon is up? It is night time. So, night time is the only time when probably the first three stanzas is happening during the night, when the dolphins are allowed to be themselves. Yes, that's a time when they are by themselves, and the dolphins are reminiscing of the beautiful times they've had. So probably the first three stanzas is the night time when the thoughts of the dolphins go back to those glorious moments of freedom and wild abandon of the past. But now the moon has disappeared. So when the day begins, they again get back to being the playthings in the hands of man. Right? They go back to their well-worn grooves. This entire thing, this entire image that is conveyed. Grooves are, as you know, the lines that the path that we make on water, on the soil, with constant use. So here, of course, what does the dolphins say? We circle well-worn grooves. So we do our routine work, the same work that we have been trained to do time and again, day after day. So we are circling the same path. Even the path inside the pool that they take is one that is fixed for them. There is no freedom. It is a routine path that they have to take. And there's a single note. There is no free swimming and dancing like it is there in the first stanza, a direct contrast. Here it's a single note. What is that note? The note that is set by man. Yes, we do not have the freedom to create our own music, right? And the single note uh, also refers to the entire monotony of movement as we go round the same path, round and round, again and again, because we are mere puppets on a string, right? Music of loss forever from the other's heart, which turns my own to stone. So, you know, when do we get some hope? When we see hope around. Even if we feel dejected, if we see moments of hope around, if we meet people who are hopeful, if we meet people who are optimistic, that brings hope to us. But here, each dolphin in the pool is echoing the same thought of dejection and despair. Yes. So, music of loss forever from the other's heart, which turns my own to stone. So, what has happened, which turns my own to stone? So there is empathy, but there is empathy in pain, there is empathy in loss, there is empathy in uh, having lost their original freedom forever. Now you see, if you have ever seen the dolphins, they communicate through the clicking. There's a distinct click 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 sound that through which they communicate. Yes, so this high frequency sounds that probably even we can't hear, right? So it's very natural that this kind of the tank that they are in, uh, and the loss of music that is there, uh, within one is echoed in everyone. So the sense of having um, being deprived of your basic necessity of survival, that is freedom, is being echoed in the hearts of everyone. And he says, my heart turns to stone because there is no hope. Each one looks at the other and they see only hopelessness. Yes. So that imagery here is one of resignation to this sense of hopelessness. Yes. Probably this entire thing of heart turning to stone is the ultimate imagery that you get of um, death, of all the beautiful elements of life which has happened. Yes. But immediately, what follows? There is a plastic toy. Man has encroached with his plastic artificiality, that world that we have now been pushed into. It's an artificial world. There is no hope in this artificial world because this is not our natural habitat. Yes, it's the same element, but we are not free. This is not our natural habitat. There's a plastic toy that now governs our life. There is no hope. We sink to the limits of this pool until the whistle blows. So that's a part of the act. We have to go deep down, dive deep down. And then when we hear the whistle, again a means of control. Do we jump up again to make ourselves, uh, make our presence felt, make ourselves seen by the spectators who are around watching us? Diving deep down and coming up again, the whistle showing the control that man exercises on us. So, in the first stanza, the hoops, artificial means of control. In the second stanza, we just have a man. In the third stanza, we have the colored ball, and in the fourth stanza, the plastic toys and the whistle. Right. So, all objects of control. The uncomfortable truth, uncomfortable for us. And what is the uncomfortable truth? The reality that our hands are instrumental in creating this artificial world where we have confined free mammals like the dolphins. Yes. These creatures who do not have a language, they cannot express. We have assumed that they do not have feelings as well. So we have taken them under our jurisdiction. We are controlling their lives and made a mockery of the concept of freedom that we boast about in our everyday existence. Yes. There is a man, and our mind knows we will die here. They're resigned to the fact because there is a man. There is a man. Please do notice how every stanza there is a man. It is the man. They're twice the man. Very specific. The man who controls. But there is a man. Entire humanity is responsible. Man is responsible. And there is a man, and our mind knows we will die here. Because man will not grant us our freedom. We have become their playthings, toys in their hands. They are using us and they will not let us go. Probably they'll let us go when we are done with. Yes, when there is no urge uh, to live at all. That's when probably we will be granted our freedom. Right. So you see this entire recurring image, the recurring image of control and persecution by man is what is the predominant theme. Yes, you have the different you know the power relation that exists in the world. In this world, we have the strong versus the weak. It's always the strong, the survival of the fittest, right? Man has really exploited this concept of the survival of the fittest. So it's taken all that it can under its control, yes. And who faces this impact of this full force of this oppression? The quiet, uh, speechless, gentle creatures whom we are exploiting to the fullest, right? I hope you've understood the poem. If you have any further questions, you're most welcome to ask, right, please. And we will be discussing a few questions now. You must remember also that many of our poems that we have studied, or even in this prose pieces, you've studied about personification, right? And personification is very simple when we attribute human qualities to something, to objects or non-living creatures. I mean, when we are talking about human qualities and we attribute it to them. But this poem is an example of anthropomorphism, when animals or objects start behaving like human beings. And how do they behave? They're talking to us. The dolphins talking to us, expressing their thoughts and feelings, right? So it becomes a clear example of anthropomorphism. So you must remember this, and that's a style that is used in this poem, right? So uh, we now turn to the question. Of course, there's one little thing that as I was reading, many places I've read papers where this entire persecution of dolphins has been translated into what is happening in a human society, about the persecution of gender persecution, race persecution. The dolphins can symbolize women, can symbolize girls, can symbolize the downtrodden, can symbolize the Dalits. You will have various interpretations like that available all round, but I would like you to keep to the dolphins as symbols of all that man persecutes. Yes. So keep to that. Dolphins are representatives of that. So we symbolizes the entire race of dolphins, group of dolphins that's there in the water. And in a if you stretch the elasticity of commonality, then we talk about all the different sections of our society that has been oppressed by man. I'm using man, not the humankind, deliberately, right? Okay. Let's move to the questions. For this, a slight change in my positioning, because the questions are here as I switch on this computer. Because I type out the questions here, it'll be easy for you. The first one is being taken from ISC Specimen Paper 2019. Question 1. The Dolphins is a poem of protest against the slow destruction of nature and natural creatures by man. Very simple, direct, and those are the kind of questions that will generally be asked. Yes. Protest. It's a poem of protest, right? Ultimately, it is. Why has Carol Ann Duffy written the poem? For us to realize what we are doing. Yes, we have taken away creatures who are meant to live in the open and free, to become objects of our own entertainment. Of course, there is a counter debate about the perennial epistemological question about helping uh, indigenous and creatures who are becoming extinct to survive. We need zoos, we need parks, we are helping them to survive. This is a debate that will go on and on. But if we create a natural surroundings and put them there, one can accept it. Yes. If you're putting them into the river and allowing them to be them their own selves, then we accept. But here it is not a natural surrounding. We have created artificiality. So we are destroying nature. And if you look at the world around, what is happening to the dolphins is reflected in a lot of loss of freedom for many around. So, nature, destruction of nature, yes, removing the sense of freedom, and natural creatures. So, how are you going to write it? It's a form of protest. So, protest and the speech of the dolphins when they say that they are in the element but they are not free. That is the protest that we are talking about. The sense of freedom has been taken away. And then you go on to the different objects that have been designed here for man to take control of the dolphins, the plastic toys, the hoops, the ball, the whistle, all objects of control. So that's how you will detail the question. If you see, most of the questions will be very similar, but use the key words of the question to for your introduction, and that is what I am reiterating every time when we are discussing questions. Please don't end up writing a summary of the poem. Look for key words. If you look at this question, with close reference to the poem, the dolphins bring out the theme of oppression and the role of humans in the quest for superiority. So, what do you highlight? You can start off with humans in the quest for superiority. Yes. What are they doing in their quest for superiority? They are oppressing. And in this poem, they are oppressing the dolphins. So, you could begin with the quest for superiority. What is man trying to prove? That they are, it is they are the topmost rung in the food chain. Yes. And so they have to survive, and they have to dominate. No, sorry, not survive, they have to dominate. They have to show who calls the shots, and they are calling the shots even in nature, where everything created in nature was free, because everything has been done by the maker, the same maker who has created us. We have forgotten it. We have assumed to be now to be the makers, right? And then again, the different artificial toys that we are using to cause oppression. So each time you're going to write about the way we are controlling the dolphins, you will come back to writing, this highlights the theme of oppression, right? So again, 20 marks. Remember 5 to 6 quotes. Let's look at question 3. Carol Ann Duffy has penned a tale of displacement and distress in the dolphins. Analyze this statement. Displacement. We are in our elements, but we are not free. They have been displaced. The water, that's a displacement. And distress, because we are controlled. We thought we were in the same element, but we realized there were boundaries. And not just boundaries. We were creating the same path. Remember, the same routine, day in and day out. Not just boundaries. We also have to act according to the whistle that is blown, the plastic toy that is placed on our snout, the hoops through which we have to jump through and entertain. We have become objects of entertainment, like puppets on a string. Right? Again, displaced, moved away from our natural surroundings. And that is a thought that is uh, predominant in this poem, right? And the distress is born out of displacement. When you are away from your natural surroundings, there is distress. So you begin with explaining the basic terms and writing, right? I've tried a three-part question, you know, 668 or 866, which is kind of a exam demand. So I have designed one. We are in our element, but we are not free. Yes, we are in our element, but we are not free, right? What is the freedom that dolphins are used to? So you talk about the water, you bring about every analogy of water here. This will be for a 6 mark. This will be 6 marks. I have put this at the end. Yes, the first is 6, then the second is 6, and the third is 8. So, what is the freedom that the dolphins are used to? Freedom to move wherever they want to, freedom to express, freedom to dance and swim, freedom of the limitless oceans, the seas, where we click, we sing our own songs. Yes, we circle and we go wherever we want to, the search for food, the sense of freedom, to live life the way we had thought we were born with, that sense of freedom. That what they used to. The first part. Remember, do not overlap. See the second question. How has Carol Ann Duffy highlighted contrasting elements in the poem? So when you're talking of water, the contrasting elements. When we are talking of music, the contrasting elements. So you have water where you have the contrast, the music when you have the contrast, and dreams when you have the contrast, blessings when there is a contrast, freedom and the contrast. Don't give too many examples here because that is also for 6 marks. Look at the last question. Who has taken away, who has taken away this freedom from them and how? Here you will detail out the role of man. Then the objects, plastic toy, hoops. First the tank, yes, the space which is restricted. Then making dolphins as playthings, yes, and in the larger scheme of the universe, we have assumed to be dictators. Yes, we have assumed to be the creators, and so we we have annihilated the sense of freedom. And this very strong um, anti-human sentiments that are echoed here. What light does this throw on the attitude of the perpetrators of this crime, on us? What light does it throw? And that's what I just spoke about. So when you write about the different objects, and then what if I quote from Shakespeare, it really no, sorry, not Shakespeare. I'm not talking of Shakespeare here, but when you want to quote, of course, if you want to bring in Shakespeare somewhere, where if you bring out the tragedies of Shakespeare, when you look at what man does to man, you do have the tragedies of Shakespeare as an example. But the most important thought that comes to my mind is the famous line, it pains me to see what man has made of man. Yes. This is what we have done to ourselves. This is what we have done to ourselves in this poem, uh, which is very well brought out by Carol Ann Duffy. And what you need to remember is, uh, you have to make this answer as creative as you can. And of course, like uh, if you want to begin your answer, many a times there are students who ask, can we begin it a bit differently? Yeah, you can use Wordsworth's quote, what man is made of man. It pains me to see, because he also wrote it in keeping what the destruction of nature. Remember the French Revolution and the pain that caused him and his group of romantics after the French Revolution. So what man is made of man is one way to begin. So you can think of different ways to begin the poem, uh, and your response to this poem. But my advice is, don't always try to make it the same way. It becomes very boring when examiners are reading the answers. Uh, See that you cover every aspect of it and answer according to the question. So the key words, like if you have superiority, harp on it. If you have, like in these questions, you have the sense of freedom that is taken away. Start from the sense of freedom. If you have the question of the theme of oppression and the role of human beings, start with that. If you have the question on destruction, begin with that. What has been destroyed? Who is being oppressed? What element is spoken about? And displacement, who has been displaced, how have they been displaced, whose role is important here. So the key words in each question to be highlighted, right? So I hope this is you've enjoyed the lesson. Do start penning down response to your questions, and if you have any further query, you're most free to write to me. Put down your thoughts in the comment section. I'll definitely respond to each one of them, right? Okay, so I end for today. Do take care, be happy, and stay safe. Bye for now.